Hi guys, this is Joanna Schneider and I am doing my recording for Level 3 LEET as a part of EDIT 6150. This is the third in a series of assignments we've had to do looking at aspects of the application of technology in the classroom and in learning. I have chosen to focus my Level 3 presentation on gaming. I did this for several reasons. One, because I am a active video gamer myself, and because I genuinely think they have a place in the classroom of the future. And so I wanted to see what the research said to back that up, and then kind of explore using some games myself. So there were a couple of articles that I read that I thought had particularly interesting results. The first was one from 2016 that looked at using an educational video game and an ebook that had the same content and comparing how the students learned. And this is the takeaway results. The results show that gaming technology is an effective learning tool and that it has a positive impact on learners' attitude. It has a more positive impact on learners' attitudes than ebooks as it enhances autonomous learning, curiosity, and motivation. Moreover, gaming technology and ebooks have a similar effect on cognition, critical thinking, and problem-solving ability. Finally, gaming technology has a more positive impact on cognitive load than ebooks. So their research found that they had similar. My takeaway from this is that they had similar kind of learning outcomes purely just on maybe the content, but that if you're talking about things like attitudes and cognitive load, the game was actually better than the ebook, which I thought was really interesting. I hadn't seen a direct comparison like this before. It's worth noting that I also tried to super focus on research from the near past because I actually did a literature survey when I was getting my master's in 2003 on video games, but like much of technology, video games are advancing so fast that the things I read about in 2003 aren't really cutting edge anymore. So I tried to make sure that my literature was from the past couple of years. This one I also found super interesting. It was a study that specifically looked at using video games to educate boys because boys, according to these researchers, don't receive as much praise in the classroom as girls do. And so they were looking at using video games as an alternate method for boys in particular. And here's what they had to say. Our findings suggest that engaged learning can occur for these boys as a result of playing games. COTS, which is commercial off-the-shelf games, engage boys in normal and natural ways and consequently can be relevant learning tools that educators, researchers, and instructional designers might employ towards traditional learning objectives. So the reason that I found this particular piece of research so interesting is because they looked at what they called COTS, commercial off-the-shelf games. A lot of research specifically looks at educational games that are designed to be educational, and I think at this point it's been pretty well established that games that are designed to be educational can aid in learning, and I think there's a lot of value in that, but you're not always going to have an educational game that's designed to teach whatever it is you're trying to teach. And so I'm super interested in ways to use commercial games, and I chose to look at a commercial game for this project. So let's transition to me showing you the game that I chose to explore. So the commercial game that I chose to look at to see whether it could enhance learning potential is called Oxygen Not Included, and it is basically a space colony simulator. I want to give you a short introduction to what it's like to start a new game, and then kind of show you what an in-progress game looks like. So Oxygen Not Included is a game that's in beta, which means that the developers aren't finished working on it. So it doesn't really have much of a story right now. This screen right here is kind of all the story you get. You have awakened trapped on an asteroid. You have 3 duplicants who are like clones. Resources are scarce. You can't remember how you got here. You have to try to help your little duplicants survive. That's really all the story that the game has at this point. So when you start off, you have your little people, and the main thing that you have to worry about at the beginning is oxygen. Although it pops up and tells you, so right now it is telling us that our colony requires toilets. If we try to create toilets, it will actually tell us that we don't have enough resources for that. So the first thing that we have to do is tell our little duplicants that they need to start mining things. Now, as soon as you start clicking on things, you can see some of the educational potential. When I scroll over things, I get this little box that comes up that tells me about whatever I'm hovering over. Right now I'm hovering over oxygen, which is a breathable gas. It tells me how much of it there is in that particular square, and it tells me the temperature in that particular square. If I actually click on it, I get a little box that pops up with more information that tells us some scientific details about oxygen, its properties, etc. It does this. Let's unpause the game so our little guys will go to work. It does this about everything in the game. So if we click on the material they're mining, it's sandstone. It gives us a bunch of information. It tells us that sandstone is useful as a construction material. This over here is algae, which it tells us can be used to produce oxygen, which is going to be important because, believe it or not, based on the name, oxygen and making sure you have enough oxygen is kind of key to the game. So at the beginning, it's relatively simple. One of the first things you have to do is build a storage container. You also have to build, under plumbing, you have to build an outhouse so that your duplicants can go to the bathroom. And then you have to just kind of see what's nearby. So they're going to need a supply of They're going to need a supply of water. They have this little pocket of oxygen, but that's probably not going to be good enough. So if I was going to continue playing, every time you start a new game, it auto-generates a new world. If I was going to keep playing in this world, I would probably want to dig up here to this oxygen pocket. And I would probably want to get access to this water down here. If we click on the water, it gives us lots of information about that. We've also got some weird materials over here that would be useful in the late game. I've now pulled up a game that I was already working on. So for the record, I actually found this game, or found out about this game kind of by accident while learning when we were doing our level 1 projects, and I was like, that sounds like something I could use for part of my class. So I've been playing this a good bit in my free time, trying to get used to it. It's actually really hard, which is one of my critiques that I'm going to talk about in a minute. But I wanted to let you guys see what a game that's been going for several hours looks like. Sorry, I cut myself off. You get more duplicants as time goes on, so I have a lot more little people now. I have a plumbing system set up, so I actually have a bathroom and shower with running water. I have a machine that is creating oxygen from the water, which is kind of a problem because I'm going to run out of water before too long. I have waste down here that's getting rid of. You have to do research to learn to build some of this more complicated stuff, so that's what this is. Oh, it's notifying me that I can actually get a new duplicant. I'm trying to farm. I've tried playing this game multiple times now, and I always end up running out of food, so this time I'm trying to heavily focus on farming, which is what's going on over here. I also haven't developed refrigeration yet, so it keeps telling me that my food is slowly rotting, which is great. It's a really addictive game. My biggest criticism is that it's hard. This would it wouldn't be appropriate for anything below a high school audience anyway, just because the science that it could be potentially teaching is pretty high level. It uses a lot of very specific scientific terminology. Also, it is definitely possible for your little duplicants to die, and just even the fact that they have to use bathrooms, I imagine, would like not work so well with middle schoolers or even early high schoolers. This is more a game that I would use to teach science at maybe the upper high school or even the undergraduate level. I haven't really figured out how I would go about implementing this into a lesson plan, but I just feel like there's so much potential because you can open, at any time, you can open the database and look through all of the entries for the different things. Like, these are different things that can happen to my duplicates. These are the different elements that I can mine for, and most of this, I should not say all, most of this is based on real science. There is some, because this is sci-fi, there is some stuff that is made up, so that would have to be something you would have to differentiate between with students. But I think there's some really good stuff here. All right, well, I have exceeded my 10 minutes, so I'm going to stop talking. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation.